fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Warning: the following video contains scenes of illegally harvested game fish. Viewer discretion is advised.
I'm Jim Hutchinson with a New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. You like that disclaimer? Well, here's another one. This one could be a little bit of a long report this week. It could get bumpy as well, so buckle up. I think most people, most fishermen, have a copy of this gem somewhere on their bookshelf. It's the quintessential book for fishermen, Maclean's Standard Encyclopedia. I believe it came out in the 1960s. This edition was from the 1990s. Now, Maclean himself was a rather prolific fishing writer, and in 1967, he wrote an essay called The Song of the Angler. And in this, Maclean attempts to answer an age-old question about what becomes an angler, or why one becomes an angler. He asks, what are the rewards of angling? A dead fish, a trophy? At some point perhaps, but then it takes years to become an angler. Now what Maclean is talking about there was a certain evolution of sorts for a sportsman, for an angler, what we go through. What Maclean called the tidal marks in our development as sportsmen. Now, in that Song of the Angler by Maclean, he writes, in the beginning, when one is very young and inexperienced, fish are measured in quantity. Then only quality becomes important. Eventually, even record fish lose their significance unless they are of a particular species, and ultimately the size doesn't matter provided they are difficult to catch. I know, what's your point, Hutchinson? Well, it's this week's headline fish out of LBI on Friday night when my phone was ringing and buzzing like mad as I was enjoying a little bit of quiet time Friday evening on the back porch. It was the scene, the image, the post at Fisherman's headquarters in Ship Bottom that broke the internet. A 40-pound plus tarpon taken by a hardcore 20-year-old spear fisherman along the jetty rocks at Barnegat Light. First, let's get this out of the way. Yes, we get tarpon at the Jersey Shore. In fact, before the state of New Jersey retired the category for this species, the state record was 53 pounds taken by Jim Klazakowicz off Seabright back in 1982. That was on rod and reel. An angler to register that tarpon as a record fish, you would think he would have had to kill the tarpon. So here in New Jersey, tarpon is allowed to be harvested. It's not regulated by a fishery management plan. There's no regulation in the state of New Jersey. Florida has their own rules for killing tarpon. They allow it, but you need a bonus tag or some type of permit. Louisiana, they spearfish for tarpon. They do the same thing in South Carolina. You can spear them in New Jersey. You can catch them on rod and reel in New Jersey. You can keep them if you catch them. So there's no regulation against it. You can legally harvest this holy grail of Floridian game fish. Now, thinking back to what Maclean said, tidal marks in our development. Rather than blindly joining the judge and jury on social media, I figured I'd go track down the young fisherman who caught that fish, who speared that fish. So I met up with 20-year-old Jake Klein at Van's Boats in Barnegat this week. He was cleaning up a few tuna after a quick hitter about 20 miles out on Wednesday. Jake saw tarpon on Thursday when he dove at the South Jetty. No one on shore believed him, which is why he was back there again with friends on Friday.
My buddy Shane, who probably believed me the least out of everybody, made a drop, first drop of the day, came up screaming, I just saw 6 tarpon, Jake wasn't lying. Told you, bro. I go down, I see 2 more. I didn't get a shot, so I didn't have a clear shot. I didn't want to, rip another one off, risk all that. Then I come up, breathe up, make a drop. 4 more come right into me. Take a nice shot behind the gill plate of this one. Now we're about 20 feet of water. We're more out towards the end of the inlet, so I'm struggling to get it to the surface. As soon as I get up, I'm screaming for a backup shot, backup shot, backup shot. My buddy Shane comes, he gives me a backup shot. Max comes as well. We all grab the fish together. We put it in a fish bag, tuna bag, ice it down. We drove it to fish heads, got it weighed, went back in the ice bag, came here. We were a little excited, so we didn't do anything with the fish that night, but the next morning I cut it up, put some meat in the smoker, smoked it up, and it didn't come out terrible, it didn't come out great, but we ate it, and it was, I had to eat it, I had to give it a shot, I didn't want to waste the whole fish, so.
title marks in our development. Now, in my 20s, had I encountered a big tarpon in New Jersey, would I have killed it? I don't know. Would you? My 20s are way back in the rearview mirror at this point, and I'm smart enough not to weigh in on the subjective versus objective definitions. That's of legal, what's legally allowed, and what's personally acceptable to people. But just to be clear, you are allowed legally to harvest a tarpon in the state of New Jersey. And of course, Jake and his friends, as we've learned, ate the fish. These were the two biggest concerns over the weekend with a lot of people. So is this a little bit of a, I don't know, cancel culture at work in our recreational fishing community? At the risk of getting canceled myself, I just don't always understand where all the hate on social media comes from. I know it's a tarpon, it's a great big herring, it's a game fish down in Florida, and I'm not condoning it. I'm just asking questions. And the story here isn't a 20-year-old and a few of his teenage buddies that they killed a fish and brought it home and ate it. Folks scream about getting kids off of computers, yet when those same kids don't do exactly what you want them to do or how you would like them to do it from your own experience, what happens? We as adults get back on the keyboard ourselves to trash these same kids we criticize for always being at the keyboard. And we do it without stopping to ask questions. And I think everybody's most important question here is what? It's the question that I asked Jake myself.
Why did I kill it? So there's a couple different reasons why I killed it, and you know, I wanted everyone to believe me. Was that totally right thing to do, to kill the fish just because I wanted people to believe me? No, but also that's a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. How often? I mean, the last time one was recordedly caught here was in '82. You know, that's the last one on record. For me, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I will never see one of those, never shoot one of those, let alone catch one of those in my lifetime. From what I can tell, in Barnegat Light, New Jersey. Not like we're in Cape May, South Jersey. We're in Central Jersey. We're in Barnegat Light. You know, I mean, and it wasn't even like the water was that warm. It was only 70 degrees. It's just like, you know, people give me hate for deer hunting, but I deer hunt because I like to eat deer meat. You know. And I hunt conservatively. I don't go out there and just kill whatever moves. And also, another comparison you give it to is like marlin fishing. You know, everywhere else out in the world, people eat and kill marlin. On the East Coast here, it's frowned upon. Why? I'm not sure. Personally, I love eating marlin. I think marlin are delicious, and if I did catch one, probably harvest it. It's just, I don't know, that's just kind of how I roll. That's how I think of it.
Full disclosure here, I've known the Klein family for many, many, many years. And I know that Jake learned to spearfish when he was in Hawaii with his family. They just moved back to the LBI area about 4 or 5 years ago. But in talking to Jake and asking a couple of questions, what I learned is that there wasn't just this one tarpon along the jetty at Barnegat Light. There were 12. Well, 11 now. Which brings to mind the obvious question that rod and reel fishermen in the state of New Jersey, and especially in the Barnegat Light area, should have for themselves.
To be honest with you, the second day that I went out, the day that I shot the fish, those fish were definitely in feeding mode. They were cruising back and forth on the ledge of the inlet. They were looking for food. I think if someone who is an experienced tarpon fisherman or has been around and knows how to target these fish, I think they could go out there and successfully catch them. I really do. There was the numbers were there. The fish were in a feeding mode, from what I can tell, and I think there's a good chance someone could go out there and catch one.
One final thought here. The New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife, I know, received hundreds of phone calls and emails about this catch on Friday, but apparently didn't have the guts to come out with a public statement at all about the legality of whether or not you're allowed to catch and keep tarpon in the state of New Jersey. Shame on you. The debate over right and wrong, that's not your bag at the state of New Jersey. Your bag is to tell us what's legal and what's not, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And you said nothing, made no public statement, gave no response to the questions you were getting all through the weekend into Monday. Shame on you. I had a text exchange with a staffer this week who was spouting off on his own personal views on his own personal Facebook page, what he thinks is okay and what he doesn't think is okay, apparently with an axe to grind. forgetting that his job is to stay on top of the laws and regulations and inform the public, which is apparently something that the State Division of Fish and Wildlife in New Jersey is finding hard to do. It took 3 days to get someone at the state to respond, and then only in text did they do it. So I have a message for the bureaucrats at the Trenton office for the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife. 2 years ago, you told me that you told the entire community that you were going to do something to separate speckled trout from weakfish, because they're not the same species of fish. Weakfish, 1 fish bag limit, so you applied speckled trout that way, 1 fish bag. There's no reason to have speckled trout to have a 1 fish bag limit. So why don't you figure that out? Random enforcement, arbitrary enforcement of weakfish, it doesn't make sense. Why don't you start beating the bushes, right? Get off of Facebook, beat the bushes to try to do something with speckled trout after 2 years, because you haven't done anything about that. And if tarpon are already here along the beach, and the tuna are 20 miles in, we're talking yellowfin 20 to 25 miles out off the beach right now, and then you had a marlin in the wash a couple of weeks back, I'm guessing that we're going to have a really good run of speckled trout in the fall. You know what else is swimming around Barnegat Inlet with those tarpon? Cobia. Paul Hartel caught this 26-incher this week while drifting for fluke. Now, if you plan on keeping a cobia, that limit was changed in 2021. It's 37 inches now in length. So Paul released that one. By the way, Paul runs that JCAA Heavy Hitters Fluke Tournament this weekend. It's a 4-day event. 4 days that Paul runs for the JCAA, meaning you get to choose 1 day out of 4 so that you can maximize your opportunities. You can find details at jcaa.org. There are some jumbos out there to be had, especially as you get up into the northern part of the state. Always Monmouth County seems to be that place where the action gets great on some of those doormat fluke, whether you're running out of Shark River to, let's say, the Rattlesnake, or you're on the Bay Shore, so some of that deep water. You, of course, know the name Tony Arcabasio, Tony Maja. What you might not know is Tony's brother, Tony Jr.'s uncle, Vito, is one heck of a fluke guy, one of the best in the state. Great Kills Bait and Tackle, aka Michael's Bait and Tackle, weighed in Vito's 11.8-pound fluke on Saturday, which should appear soon on the leaderboard in the Fisherman Magazine's Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. We'll have an update at the end of this week's video on that. That's a members-only contest. You got to be a subscriber to the Fisherman to enter into that tournament. I did hear from longtime subscriber John Toronto, though. He was telling me he's been trying for years to break that 10-pound mark. This week, he had new angler Vanessa Maya of Keensburg out around the Sandy Hook. They were out in front of Sandy Hook. While learning how to use a bait caster, Vanessa apparently picks up things pretty well. 30.5 inches on a gulpin teaser. It went just a hair over 10 pounds on the boga. John told me they had so many fish in the cooler already that they let this jumbo go. Outstanding. Doormat. John, keep it up. You'll get that one soon. Also on Rare and Bay this week, I heard from Joe the Plumber, who beat his own previous pool winner aboard Captain Ron's The Fisherman out of Atlantic Highlands, heading into the final day of the monthly contest, a 9.3-pound fish on Friday. Good to hear. Again, those jumbos are on the feed in some of the deep water around Rare and Bay. Now, at this point along the front, think Central Ocean, Atlantic, and Cape May County, you want to get into that structure. I think the structure is probably where you're going to get the best opportunity to land some keeper fluke. Matthew Hochman shared this report over the weekend saying summer flounder action has been great in South Jersey on the Wildwood and Townsend Inlet reef sites. He had his personal best on Sunday. That was a 26-incher, weighed in at 5 3/4 pounds, caught on a magic tail hoochie ball jig and pink shine gulp. Matthew also said sea robin strips on Austin Timpson's hand-tied teasers. He's from over there on the Miss Avalon, I believe. That will get the job done as well. No boat? No problem. You've got the head boats. The head boats are sailing daily, just about any port you find along the Jersey Shore, down into Delaware, of course, as well. And those guys are used to finding the fish. They'll get you on the big fish. And I'll tell you, some good blue fishing has been had on some of those party boats as well, especially the northern half of the state of New Jersey. The big Jamaica running out of Brielle said blue fishing was solid this past Tuesday. Fish were schooled up around the boat, whacking jigs. The pool winner was up around 8 pounds. They had also switched over to hard bottom, had limits of sea bass. You get that 2 sea bass limit in New Jersey, and had some fluke as well. But I'll tell you what, through this past weekend, found out the surf action for fluke was outstanding. Gangbusters, absolutely on fire. Maybe it's water temperatures as the fluke move in and out of the inlets. They're staging at that area of the surf line. Maybe it's bait, whatever. The start to this week was a little bit slower than it was over the weekend. And I heard from some captains out on the boat saying the same thing. So maybe there was an upwelling, the water temperatures changed, but I'll tell you what, it's just like flipping a switch. So maybe the fluke are on one day in the surf and not the next. But I would advise, if you've got the opportunity to hit the beaches, get yourself a backpack with a few jig heads and various gulp. That's what I'll do. I'll have a tackle bag on my back, a light rod and reel outfit, and also a cooler bag filled with ice. Hit the groins where you find them. They're hard to find at the Jersey Shore since all the beach replenishment, but also look at some of those sloughs, pay attention to the tides. But I'll tell you what, jig heads and gulp will get it done, and you can always have that bait around because it doesn't get that stinky if it's sitting around. So good opportunity there. Small ones, sure, there are a bunch of shorts in the wash, but some impressive keepers too. Check this beauty weighed in at Charlie's Bait and Tackle in Normandy that was just caught up the street from the shop. By Lisa Chardon, 24 inches, 6 pounds, 6-pound surf caught summer flounder. Not too bad. That was a white S&S bucktail and gulp. Her sister Kristen also had a 22-incher on Friday as well. Matt here with a slob off the beach, 5.8 pounds, 25.5 inches. That was caught over the weekend, checked in with the folks at Grumpy's in Seaside. So that entire Ocean County stretch also is a good bet, and especially down at Island Beach. Meanwhile, up north, along one of the piers, young Elizabeth Ildefonso brought home her first keeper of the year. Good sign for folks looking to score from shore up in the Monmouth County area, whether from the Bay Shore or out along the Suds in Sandy Hook. Still a few stripers to be had. Roger Good, he checked in with Lewis Harbor Marina over the weekend with a 37-inch striper, what they love to call rockfish down in Delaware. That was caught on bunker chunk at the Cape Henlopen Pier just after midnight on Saturday. Now I'm hearing the same thing throughout Atlantic and Cape May County. From some of the Sharpies that I know, the Sod Bank Creepers, Chris Madison, Jose Lopez, all those guys, especially while we're sleeping at night, these guys are creeping along the sod banks. But there's a lot of bait in back, some good variety on some of those stripers along the sod banks and outside the creek mouths as well. Just hold on to your rods if you're fishing along those front beaches. Lest your rod will shoot out of the sand spike like a rocket towards the horizon. Mike Cataline said Central Ocean County beaches had been solid for fluking for him, but one highlight of the weekend was that his 12-year-old daughter, Emma, landed this big ray while casting to busting bluefish with a white-tail Ava at Island Beach. Those rays are on the prowl, and there's some hefty ones in the mix as well. We'll roll the dice on this weekend's weather. Take a look at the offshore action next. But first, let's check in with my friend George, the Pocono Outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, it's the middle of summer, and we've been talking about this every week. The weather's been having a huge play in the way things are happening. But, you know, it is midsummer, and kind of the same old thing week after week. We are in those dog days, although it feels a little bit more like Groundhog Day. You know, the same thing week after week. You can go get the bass, the stripers, the smallmouth. Everything you want to pretty much target is on right now. It just depends on the tactics. You know, right now with the water still warm, you might do better off with like a Texas rig worm, a jig, or even like a Ned rig out there in that deeper water, get into the smallmouth. Top water is always fantastic for those bass. Lots of great things going on. But I do want to announce something. The Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission has announced their fall stocking schedule for trout. You can go online to fishandboat.com. They have a full schedule of all their fall stocking plans, the date and time they're going to be stocking at each location. They'll be stocking brook trout, brown trout, rainbow trout, and even some goldens. Find out where they'll be stocking your favorite lake, stream, or creek, and go to fishandboat.com. So let's get out and get on them, guys. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
Don't forget, we still have those weekly fishing reports. We compile them every Sunday night. They're available over at thefisherman.com on Monday morning, Central North and South Jersey freshwater report, Nick Konachesky's Beach Talk report, our Delaware and Maryland report, and of course Tom P. wraps us up with all the offshore action. He said this week that the Atlantic Princess, the Reser, Ollie's Lump, the Cigar, Elephant's Trunk, and other mid-range locations continue to provide good to excellent action with the yellowfin and bluefin alike. Speaking with Jake earlier this week, he had the yellowfin about 20 miles out. My buddy Brian was out this week. He found yellowfin about 28 miles. So that's good. It's not that long range trip. Also, the southern canyons like the Baltimore, Wilmington, and Toms, that's where the white marlin, they're all over ballyhoo. And the wahoo are beginning to play around out there as well. And of course, you head out to the Hudson. That's your best opportunity where you're going to find some of those big eye. The mahi are thick around the inshore, mid-range, and canyon pots as well. So the offshore action is good. The surfcaster Manny Butera, he told me he was out over the weekend, only about 12 miles out, got his first bluefin ever. I think he said it was about a 30-pounder with cousins Len and Lon. It's nice trading in the waders for the fiberglass under your feet once in a while, isn't it, Manny? Eric Pignatoro said he saw last week's video forecast, said he and his crew also have been doing well on those deep drop trips with swordfish in the 250 to 270 range. And how about this beauty? 56-inch, 50-pound mahi for Jeff Kashajango. I'm sorry, Jeff. Jeff C. He was fishing out of Barnegat Light last week in the canyons. This is 2 weeks in a row. I've reported on some big, beautiful mahi, but a 50-pounder, that's awesome. Big mahi that have not shown up in the Fisherman's Dreamboat Fishing Challenge just yet in New Jersey. Folks, if you're coming ashore with a big mahi on one of those canyon trips, make sure you stop at one of the tackle shops. If you're a member, if you're a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine, that could put you on the board. Also, sea robins. Some folks have been catching some jumbo sea robins. We added that category because that's such a tasty fish and it opens up the opportunities. So don't forget about that. If you subscribe to the Fisherman magazine, look for that page in the magazine to figure out what fish are in the divisions so you can bring something home for the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. As for the NOAA weather forecast for the offshore grounds, let's go to the official National Weather Center forecasting tool for details. You ready? Saturday and Sunday from the Hudson to the Baltimore, you have winds less than 10 knots. That's good sign. Seas. And the seas are just 3 to 4 feet. So that's your offshore weather forecast. The wind direction for the weekend is south-southeast. So not a lot of wind. Looks like a good weekend to get offshore. If you're looking to get in on some of that tuna action, the mahi, swordfish, and all the other things. Finally, after getting chosen second overall in the recent Major League Draft out of Vanderbilt, and before heading to camp for the Texas Rangers, what would you do? Well, you'd head offshore with the family and enjoy the incredible offshore bite at the Jersey Shore, wouldn't you? Yeah. Up-and-coming ace pitcher Jack Leiter, alongside his family and, of course, his father, the great Al Leiter, Central Regional product, who was a 3-time World Series champ, 2-time All-Star. They got on a tuna bite just this past weekend. Not the only famous people who fish in New Jersey either. DJ Jazzy Jeff, one of the pair of the Philly-born and raised duo that included the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith. Jeff on a trip aboard the Voyager last week. And country singer-songwriter Jimmy Allen stopped by Lewis Harbor Marina just the other day to gear up to get in on the action. So, you want to be a famous fisherman? Subscribe to the Fisherman magazine, enter the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge, catch a lot of big fish, drive off in a Steiger 255 with a Yamaha 300 outboard, or post a photo on Facebook of a dead fish. I'll leave you with our Coastal Kayak Clash update and Dreamboat leaderboard update as well. We'll see what we can stir the pot with next week. Catch them up. I'll see you again at thefisherman.com.
No changes in the standings of the Dreamboat contest, but we do have some notable entries. Louis Moraes weighed in this 10.2-pound fluke recently at Montauk Marine Basin, placing him in 6th place in the fluke division. With Blackfish now open in Rhode Island, we received our first Blackfish entry from Leo Provost with a 11.2-pounder. And take a look at the belly on this sea robin. This glutton weighed in at 3.1 pounds, putting Mark Cristiano in 3rd place. The Dreamboat Fishing Challenge is the Fisherman subscriber-only season-long multi-species fishing competition with a chance to win a 25-foot Steigercraft center console powered by Yamaha, along with many other great prizes. Subscribe now to the Fisherman magazine to be part of the action.
We did not receive a submission that cracked the top 3, although we did receive a 23-inch sea bass from Alfred Green, which put him in 3rd place for the species category and is probably going to win him the Fish of the Month for July. We just need to wait for August 8th to come and go to make sure we don't get a late submission, and then Alfred's going to go home with a $100 gift certificate to yakattack.com. Now that we're in August, the Fish of the Month is going to be a sea robin. And if you can get the biggest one this month, then you too will take home a $100 gift certificate to yakattack.com. If you haven't joined the Coastal Kayak Clash yet, go to thefisherman.com, click on the contest menu, and go to the Coastal Kayak Clash webpage. You'll see that we're giving away a Hobie Mirage kayak, we're giving away a Humminbird, Fish Finder, and a whole bunch of other prizes. Sign yourself up and finish out the season strong.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.